Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Grit, Grace, and Growth. I am your host, Laura Navaquin, and today we are diving into a topic that is essential for every entrepreneur out there, and that is building a supportive and collaborative community. Success isn't just about having a great product, it's also about creating a network of people that can support you, that you can collaborate with, and grow alongside you. Our guest today, Mara Smith, is a brilliant example of this. She is the founder of Inspiro Tequila. And Mara went from practicing law and corporate strategy to launching her very own tequila brand, all while navigating the challenges of entrepreneurship as a former stay at home mom. Her journey is inspiring, not just because of what she built, but also of how she's done it by fostering community and bringing a much needed female perspective to the spirits industry. I'm excited to dive right into this conversation with you. All right, Mara, welcome to the show. I know that you had an interesting journey from attorney and corporate strategist, and I can't wait to get into your story. And I have a number of questions outlined for you because it's such an interesting journey. But first, can you just open and share a little bit about your journey and how you went from attorney and corporate strategist to founding a spirits brand?
Hi, Laura. Nice to be here. Yes, that's not like a really linear path, is it? So, just lots of pivots there.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I started out working for a large law firm in Chicago after I graduated from law school. I took the big, law firm job to be able to like pay off my law school loans. Got
Mhm.
great experience and was thrown in the fire very quickly. Um, and then once I started contemplating having a family, actually, I had gotten married while I was there and started thinking about having a family. Um, I looked around. I'm like, wait, there are no female partners in my department. I'm like, I had no role models to look at how we could possibly balance like large law firm life and having a family.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to move to the business side. My undergrad degrees in business. I have a CPA, and I said, I'm going to try out the business side. So I went to go work for a big corporation. I went to McDonald's Corporation to work in their corporate strategy department and business development. So up until that point, I like never thought of entrepreneurship. That was
Mhm.
not at all something that I saw in my future. When I was there, though, all of a sudden my eyes were open to studying consumer trends and customer insights and like thinking of different concepts and ideas for McDonald's. And then at the same time, started thinking like, oh, maybe I would open, my own business and just thinking
Mhm.
of business ideas. Thought about opening a franchise of an ice cream franchise, and realized Chicago not the best locale for an ice cream franchise. So um, and then nothing ever goes according to plan. This was probably the most major pivot that I never anticipated was
Mhm.
that I ended up on emergency bed rest when pregnant with my oldest children, who are twins. They're all great. They're
Mhm.
in college now. Um, but my corporate career came to a screeching halt very abruptly. I then had preemie twins, and I made the decision to stay home. I'm very fortunate I had that option, but I decided to stay home, then had another child 9.5 years later. So I was out of the traditional workforce, but still working very hard for over 16 years. Um, Always knew though that I was going to start my own company. Like that had
Mhm.
always been in the back of my mind. I probably just listened to too many, how I built this podcast, read too many books on like female founders. And I'm like, I'm going to do this one day.
Mhm.
I knew it was going to be in food or beverage because I'm a super consumer. I love the category. And it became tequila. Frankly, it was like two things that converged. One, I'd become a tequila drinker.
Mhm.
Um, Kind of like live a healthier lifestyle, gluten free, low
Mhm.
sugar. And so I started drinking tequila and then discovered that all the tequilas I was drinking, when I thought I was drinking something kind of like better for you as far as an adult
Mhm.
beverage, actually used additives in their production process. So they had like sweeteners, including artificial sweeteners and
Oh.
aspartame and glycerin and coloring. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, really? Um, and the second thing was that I'm like, okay, well, I want to clean tequila, but also all these women kept telling me they're tequila drinkers. I was like, well, if all these women drink tequila, why do brands not focus on this consumer? And she is a very significant consumer. Like we control the spending
Uh-huh.
for the household. So it was kind of those two things. I really wanted to come up with something that was additive free, still a really approachable, good tasting tequila,
Mhm.
and that was crafted with this like very relevant and discerning consumer in mind. So
Mhm.
February 2020, impeccable timing. I'm like, I'm going to do
Yes.
it. And I'm like, oh no, the whole world shuts down.
Yes.
Um, so delayed the plans a little bit, but at least I had a lot of
Mhm.
time to get started
Mhm.
on it. And while also having 3 kids homeschooling, it was a
Yes.
great adventure. But yeah, that's kind of how it came to be then.
Yeah, I love that story and how you went from where what you entered the workforce and being and how that trajectory just changed over your career, the number of the years, and how you were inspired to even start a tequila brand overall. And how would you say in your journey building a supportive network in the early stages of launching Inspiro really reflected on your success thus far?
I think honestly, having a community is essential for a
Hmm.
founder for a number of reasons. One, the first thing you need to do is you have to do your research. You have to do
Hmm.
due diligence. There's no getting around that. Like I had to learn everything I possibly could about tequila production and the spirits industry and marketing and all that.
Hmm.
But you have to have people there to support and, collaborate with you. I
Hmm.
went in, I re-entered the workforce. I did not have a LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
I had no business network. I had like a great like carpool
Hmm.
set up and network, but I had no business network. I had to build that. I had to build it very deliberately.
Hmm.
So I just started reaching out to people, and every outreach, I get a response and maybe another introduction. And then I had to follow up on all
Hmm.
those introductions and
Hmm.
make real connections. Like I don't really think of it as networking.
Hmm.
I have people I know from LinkedIn that I'm connected to that then they come in town to Chicago and I like meet with them in person.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
we do events together. So I think it's really building that like community, and
Mhm.
especially for me, of other founders. I learn the most from other founders. There could be
Mhm.
great consultants who have experience, advisors, you know, mentors, but other founders, that's where I get like, you get the nitty gritty and I'm like, hey, I saw you have a new website. I really like it. Who built it for you?
Yes.
You can actually get those resources. So at this point now, I have like an
Mhm.
amazing community of other mostly female
Mhm.
founders and leaders, and they provide a lot of guidance.
Mhm.
But I also think we sometimes tend to forget there's always something we can also add back,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So even though I might be a smaller, newer brand, there's always a connection or something that I can make for
Mhm.
someone else that can help them as well.
Yes. I agree. I agree in that end too. And I know even for myself, when I was on the corporate side for a number of years and building a network, there was so much different than when I moved over to entrepreneurship, that network that I had to start growing there and how those networks worked with one another. So similar, I think, as you're saying, you had a network of carpool moms and parents type of thing, and the network when I was in the group health insurance. Very different than again when I moved over to entrepreneurship and specifically and actively networking with other founders and being able to learn from them, regardless of what stage of entrepreneurship that they were in. And I do think even looking back on my past year and where I've come in the past year, I really do say that a lot of that came from the network and going out and networking and building meaningful relationships overall. So, my question for you, too, I know that you said you didn't have a LinkedIn profile when you initially began and you were actively reaching out and building meaningful relationships. Were you where were you building these relationships? Was it LinkedIn specifically, networking groups, memberships, a mix of all of those? Where did you spend the most time in?
I'd say I started with 2 things. One, because it was
Mhm.
during COVID, there were more and more networking groups that were building online, so virtual
Mhm.
networking groups. So I started with that. Like I joined um, a couple of women's networking groups that were
Mhm.
larger platforms,
Okay.
and some of them were offering like mentorship groups within that. So
Oh,
anytime I could make
okay.
it like a little smaller, I usually
Mhm.
do. So they were offering that, and I did like 4 of them. I did 4
Mhm.
mentorship groups with them where they had a
Yes.
mentor, and I get to meet a small group of founders and then connect with them.
Mhm.
So I joined some of those networks to meet people virtually. Then I
Mhm.
started connecting with them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I just started building.
Okay.
Like I wasn't really posting, I wasn't putting out there a
Mhm.
lot out there. And then that became more of my like
Mhm.
platform. But so I joined those larger groups.
Mhm.
Then I always think you look in like kind of like different verticals. So then I had to build credibility within my own industry, right? I
Mhm.
came as an outsider to the spirits industry. People have been in it
Mhm.
forever. So I had to
Yes.
gain some credibility. So then I joined some groups like Women of the Vine and Spirits, women that
Mhm.
are in my industry. I became active in some of those groups. I just,
Mhm.
would find like any accelerator I could join. I just applied for
Mhm.
everything too. There's an
Mhm.
accelerator, a pitch competition, any of those, I applied because any of those opportunities to kind of like build that community and meet people
Mhm.
um, in I'd say more of a personal way as opposed to like a huge
Mhm.
organization, I would do. And I also I became certified woman owned like right off the bat, like from the
Mhm.
beginning. And WeBank, yes, a lot of people just look at the certification, how's that going to help me or help business, but like
Mhm.
they offer a ton of programming.
Oh,
So
okay.
I took advantage of a lot of that programming. I didn't
Mhm.
understand anything about like marketing, for example. I took one that was on digital marketing, one that was
Mhm.
on regular marketing strategy, one
Wow.
that was on how to get into retailers. So, and
Mhm.
all of those have cohorts of other founders. So
Yes.
I would take like these big groups and try and make them a little bit smaller. It's like if you
Mhm.
go away to a big university and you want to like you have to find like some community within it to make it feel a little smaller. That's kind of
Mhm.
what I did. And then I connect with people and just keep following up.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's another really great point to make as well, is just really following up and not just making that initial connection, but it's building the relationship with your connections through time as well. And then with bringing a female perspective to the spirits industry specifically, would you say that there have been any challenges being a woman or a woman-owned business in what is a traditionally male-dominated space or industry? At least that's what I've gathered from research that I've
Yes.
done online, that
It's a very male.
predominantly a male industry.
Yes. You definitely
Would
have
you?
that right.
Mhm,
It is definitely male dominated. Every room we walk into, we like do an over under of how many women are going to be there.
mhm,
Um, I say, I mentioned this before, but one thing that was actually the hardest entering this industry is
mhm,
actually earning respect as an outsider because a lot of
mhm.
people have worked their way up in this industry from
Okay.
like bartending to working for, maybe supplier, then distributor. Like they've been in for a really
Mhm,
long time. So coming in as an outsider, people are like, who are you? So
mhm,
that part was difficult. Um, but I think people, once I kind of could earn that respect, I
mhm,
don't see it I don't see that as being a hurdle as far as me being a
mhm,
woman, because there's been, I think,
mhm,
more, kind of reception to having more women come in. What I
mhm.
do think is very, very difficult for women, particularly in this industry, though, is that we tend to be underfunded. I have a community of women who are in spirits, you know, female founders. There are not that many of us. So I know like most of them. And if I don't know them, every time someone introduces me, I'm like, yes, I want to know them.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and the, it just seems to be the same kind of story over and over is that
Mhm.
there's, besides the fact that there's just a lack of funding in general for
Yes.
female founders, once you get to a vice category, the spirits category,
Mhm,
um, they're very underfunded. They're super scrappy, savvy, incredible business acumen. All these
mhm,
women have with great products, but it's really hard to scale and build something um, very large
mhm.
when they don't have access to the same type of capital.
Would you say, and it seems to me that it's the networks ultimately that you've put yourself in and basically leverage that's helped you build the credibility within the industry as well. Would you say that's so?
Yeah, I'd say my network helped me build credibility within the industry because I like started connecting to people that are in
Mhm,
the industry, that I know the women in the industry, things like that.
mhm,
Um, and hopefully, listen, when it comes to the fundraising aspect part of it, like we just started, we've been bootstrapped for 4 years because it
mhm,
is a difficult way to go and to get funding, particularly in consumer product. And then when you add the whole next level of being in alcohol, very difficult.
mhm,
So I'd say hopefully building that groundwork of having, a great like network who can introduce,
Mhm.
us to more people. But it is a very, we have to be super scrappy with how we do that
Mhm.
and put that together. And it's just, in general, the women owned businesses just don't,
Mhm.
you just don't see money like being thrown at.
Yes. I love your emphasis on building a community and network overall. And I'm definitely taking mental notes and believe that network and community builds and helps you scale your opportunities in your business overall. But I want to
Mm.
transition away from that just a tad bit and focus more on Inspiro specifically. What was your inspiration behind the name, selecting the name?
Yes. So it's kind of funny with the name. I had
Mhm.
been like racking my brain about getting a name, and I was like, okay, I want a name that's like in Spanish, but people understand in English. And I was like going
Huh.
back and forth. And then I like finally, I was thinking about these things. I hired like a naming agency, and then
Uh-huh.
it came to me like in the night, and I'm like, oh, crud. I just, I'm like, came to me. I wanted something that represented some generations of women in my
Okay.
life, because this is, um, I have, two role models who are really, significant impacts in my life, my
Mhm.
grandmother, my mother. And so Inspiro is a Spanish word for inspired. So it's named in
Mhm.
honor of them, because really I wanted something that
Mhm.
honored like my inspirations, like two really strong women who
Mhm.
gave me the confidence to believe I could do anything, including enter into
Yes.
the crazy spirits industry. Um, and it's just that there was a lot of intentionality put into that. Like when it comes to the name, when it comes to the bottle, I designed the bottle
Mhm.
with my mom on a
Okay.
pad of paper going back and forth. Cause like I wanted a bottle that was sleek and sophisticated. I wanted it to be
Mhm.
slender in the middle so it's easy to hold and pour. Cause I thought big bottles are hard to
Mhm.
manipulate. Like I wanted there to be like just intentionality behind everything. Like even our logo symbol,
Mhm.
it looks like fleur de lis. It's four script eyes for Inspiro, all
Mhm.
interconnected. And it stands for four generations of women in my family: my
Mhm.
grandmother, my mother, myself, and my daughter. So,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I love
um,
that.
I took the, I took the time to try and think of those things because I wanted everything for me to personally have some meaning.
Yes, I love that. And then how has the process been with getting your product or getting your tequila out to customers, to the end user? I see it online, but what's the experience getting it in shelves and stores and getting it out to the consumer?
Yes. So, alcohol is very highly regulated. It's regulated by
Mhm.
a three-tier distribution system, federal three-tier distribution system, which
Mhm.
means I have to sell to a distributor who
Okay.
sells to bars, restaurants, retailers, who then
Oh,
sell to the end consumer. And there's
okay.
no way to get around that. So I'm never
Mhm.
actually like selling direct to consumer.
Mhm. Okay.
So it's like so highly regulated, and every state then has their own laws and regulations. So we have to go in state by state,
Mhm.
get a distributor partner, and then also attain, retail locations
Mhm.
and bars and restaurants. So we
Mhm.
are now in 8 states. And
Okay.
for a small brand, that is a lot.
Mhm.
So we're in 8 states where people can buy us actually locally
Okay.
in retailers. And that's, something we're working on and growing and bringing on salespeople in
Mhm.
states so that we can really, you know, increase our presence and
Mhm.
footprint. And then also, we want to get into more bars and restaurants. When I started this,
Mhm.
it was COVID, everything was shut down. So now
Mhm.
that's like an initiative of ours as well, is to get more placements in bars and restaurants where our consumer would go and try us.
So a consumer cannot go to the website and purchase it,
No, they
correct?
can. They
Oh, they
can.
can. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on our website. It's just that we're not really selling direct. It's not
Directly
a
to, okay.
traditional D2C. It's
Mhm.
fulfilled by, it has to be compliant and go through
Okay.
distributor to retailer. But
Mhm.
yes, we ship online to
Mhm.
45 states. So you
Okay.
can buy us online.
Okay.
And we also always come up with like, especially during holiday time, like special releases, special kits, like fun cocktail
Mhm.
kits. We usually collaborate in general with other women owned
Mhm.
companies and put
Okay,
together
that's
some
fun.
fun kits and things for our holidays and for gifting.
On the website, does it also state which 8 states that consumers can find it in stores?
You go to the Find Us page and
Okay.
Find Us, and you put in your zip code, it
Mhm.
will tell you if we're available. But we are
Okay.
in Illinois, Michigan, Missouri,
Mhm.
Tennessee, Georgia, Massachusetts, Florida, and Southern California.
Okay, well, I'm in Florida, so I'll have to go out and take a look and
We are
see what I
definitely
can
in
do with that as
Florida.
well.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a
So
great
I'll have to take a
it's a
look.
great place to have tequila. Yes.
And then how would you say overall with the taste of tequila or your tequila, how are you differentiated amongst other tequilas out there? Do you have a unique taste about your offering?
Yes. That's a great question because there's so many tequila brands, right?
Mhm.
What I would say is we knew we wanted to create some of those sweeter tasting notes that our
Okay.
consumer generally likes, but
Mhm.
usually they're derived by using additives like
Mhm.
sweeteners, sugars,
Oh, okay.
aspartame. So we wanted some of the sweetener, like the vast majority of brands, that's what they use,
Mhm.
and most of the big celebrity brands. So we actually really tried to craft our, let's say, our Blanco tequila to
Mhm.
have less bite, have sweeter notes, but do it
Mhm.
naturally. So we
Okay.
actually have an unusual process, like we use proprietary yeast strains, and
Mhm.
we actually rest our Blanco
Okay.
in American oak barrels for a short time. Blancos
Mhm.
generally never go into wood, and we put it in
Mhm.
wood for a short time to get some of those vanilla caramel notes,
Okay.
but it's not going to taste like overly sweet. It's not going to taste like
Yes.
syrup because it's
Mhm.
real.
Yes.
But we got some of those notes. So I'd say it's a very approachable, easy to drink, like sipping
Mhm.
tequila for
Okay.
our Blanco. And our Rosa Reposados, just very unusual because it's the first tequila aged in rosé wine barrels. So the color
Oh,
is this
okay.
rose gold hue. It's all
Mhm.
natural and um, more berry and floral and less wood because usually
Mhm.
aged tequilas usually go into whiskey
Okay.
barrels. So because it goes into rosé wine, it does have a little, a different taste profile, which
Mhm.
is like exquisite.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Going back a handful of years or even 2 years ago or so, I never really even knew to look into spirits and how they're getting their flavoring when it's saying peach or whatever flavor it is, that they were coming from syrups and artificial
Yep.
flavoring put into them to give them that result. It's something that I barely learned perhaps 2 years ago or so. So I have been navigating and trying to be a more conscious consumer. Even I don't really buy spirits that frequently. It's more, holidays or parties. But when I am going out and purchasing those or even as gifts, looking for those options that are going to offer that smooth drink that anyone would enjoy without all the extra additives that go into many brands as well.
Right. And
So,
it's hard to tell. There are no
mhm.
nutritional panels generally on spirits, right? Right.
Mhm.
So it's hard to actually tell what's in it. And
And that's
consumers, that's why
true.
consumers are becoming more educated and more aware. Just like you said, you started to learn about it, right? You want to know what's in
Mhm.
your food, you want to know what's in your, you know, beauty products. And then now it's kind of like, wait, what's my drink? And they're
Yes.
starting to want to know.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm definitely going to look it up myself to see where I can locate it here in Florida and, perhaps surprise my husband with it because he's a tequila is definitely his drink of choice. So tequila and whiskey are his drinks of choice. So I'm sure he'll be quite happy with that as a gift himself. So
Thank you.
moving back to our listeners who are working and trying to build a community, would there be any practical steps that you would recommend that they can use to foster collaboration and support within their industries when they're just starting out?
I say the first thing to do is every time you're at an event, I was on a panel last night and they immediately give the homework assignment. You should have everyone that you met there, you should LinkedIn connect with. And then you should send
Mhm.
a follow-up note. Hey, it was great meeting you. I love the panel.
Yes.
Let's get make sure, and then they're seeing what you're doing.
Mhm.
And so I'd say that's like a big piece of it. Depending on your business, I always
Mhm.
think, like, let's say you're in the service industry, I always think adding just adding some value, showing, building credibility by everyone's so worried about giving something away.
Mhm.
And I don't think you're giving anything away because I always give an example. There's this woman online who is like a master at Excel and she shows her
Mhm.
Excel tricks and techniques. I look at it and it's not like she's giving it away to me because I'm thinking oh, I would hire her because she really looks like she knows
Mhm.
what she's doing. Not that I could do it
Yes.
myself. So that's what I think is anytime you can offer if you're trying to build something from scratch, especially if it's like a service like that, I would
Mhm.
provide free information to show that you know
Mhm.
what you're doing. And then you build like credibility and people want to go to
Mhm.
you. And I just think sometimes people are so worried, but I want to be like really, I don't want to give anything away. I
Yeah.
want people to come and have to join my class or whatever. I'm like,
Mhm.
put it out there because that's how you are, people are going to be like, oh, they're going to trust you because you seem,
Yes.
what you're doing. So that's one thing. So I would say if that's service. And
Mhm.
and even for product though, you know, it's a way to build more like industry credibility. If you think of it like B2B or industry recognition or putting that out, like Instagram, other social media platforms, great for followers or consumer
Mhm.
focus. But when you think about like trying to build your presence within like your industry, I think that LinkedIn is the best tool, and adding insights and sharing the journey. I think people appreciate that. People want to see like the reality behind it.
Mhm. I love that. Great advice for any of us to take back, even myself, to go back and be a lot more conscious, even when I am in those settings amongst other entrepreneurs or certain events, to make sure that I'm not just making a brief connection with somebody, but following up with them and being conscious to connect with them on multiple different platforms and keeping those conversations going after the events as well. That's great.
And keep a
So
database to track. I have a CRM that I
mhm,
track like all
that
my
is so
personal
great.
contacts.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that you made that point because I do have a database and, maybe it's not the most sophisticated, but I guess my Excel spreadsheet type database that I use for certain type of contacts. But that's a really good point to make as well, and have even a separate one for just other entrepreneurs that you're meeting, or have different tabs so that you can easily access those instead of having to scroll through emails or look for business cards or whatever it may be, because that's a business card is so easily to misplace, or you
Yeah.
remember meeting somebody. I know this happens to myself. I remember meeting somebody at a certain event. I'm like, oh, what is their name? Or I think it starts with an M, or whatever it may be. And I'm searching my email trying to find their contact information again as well. So again, having that one location where you are storing their information, it's easily to reference back to when you
Right. And take notes,
call
how you
upon.
met them,
Yes.
who introduced you. What, yeah, I try and do that as often as possible because I know I'm not going to remember.
Yes. So true. So true. Well, Mara, I love your story. I want to ask you to share with followers and listeners as well where they can find not just yourself, but Inspiro Tequila as well. I know you already mentioned the website, but what platforms are you on, social media, and follow along on your journey?
Thank you. Yes. Well, first, since we talked so much about LinkedIn, everyone,
Mhm.
please reach out and connect with me. If you send me a
Okay.
note, I will respond. Mara Smith on LinkedIn. Um, then
Mhm.
www.inspiro tequila.com online. Sign up for a newsletter because you're going to be the first to know. Like we are going to have like special launches and things coming up for
Mhm.
holidays. So you'll then be on the list. And then Inspiro Tequila, at Inspiro Tequila on Instagram, also on TikTok. Not that I ever go on TikTok, but we are on TikTok. So follow us, especially because there's so many great recipes. Like if you go to our website or
Mhm.
things they share on social media, like just fantastic
Mhm.
cocktail ideas. So,
Yes. Yeah, those are always beneficial if you're hosting or just want to try
yeah.
out a new cocktail as well, to have a different go-to instead of what you traditionally. I normally, when I have tequila, I'm having a margarita, but there are so many other options out there of cocktails that can
So
be
many.
made. Yes. All right. Well, Maura, again, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and your wisdom on networks and collaborating. Because we understand that having a good network isn't just a good, nice to have type of thing, but really is crucial for growing a successful business overall. So, again, everyone, I encourage you to go out to Maura's platforms and LinkedIn, the website, and Instagram. I will also be sure to include all of those tags for you below in the show notes so you have no trouble finding her, and follow along with the journey, and as well sign up for the newsletter so you can be the first to know when a new promotion or a new product is out to the public. Thank you so much, Mara. It was great having
Thanks,
you.
Laura, for having me.
Likewise. Thank you.